If I could sit down with my 18-year-old self for an hour, I wouldn't tell him how to get rich quick or what crypto coin to buy. I would share a handful of simple truths. Lessons that sound obvious once you hear them, but if you live by them, they save you, or they may save you, years of mistakes. Now the problem is, most people only learn these lessons after years of pain, regret, and failure. So what's the solution? Learn them now and you will move faster, avoid detours, and perhaps play life on a higher level. So today I will share 14 life lessons I wish I knew at 18. Specifically, you will learn why most success comes down to subtraction, not addition, how to handle other people's opinions so they never hold you back again, and lastly, why focus and patience are the ultimate unfair advantages. So a warm welcome back to Catch the Zenith, the podcast about high performance and business. My name is Nicola Flückiger and I work in a B2B software company in sales. So let's jump in. Lesson number 1. It's okay to have different opinions. So back in the day, I tried to avoid upsetting people. I would say what they wanted to hear just to please them. But here's what I've learned. It's totally okay to disagree, or in general to be more disagreeable. Two people can have completely different opinions, and that's okay, that's fine. Because the goal of a discussion, a debate, an intense conversation isn't to win. The goal is to approximate the truth, to learn something. It's not just to bash the other person. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to learn something, to approximate the truth. And one person I admire here is Roger Köppel. He's the editor-in-chief of Weltwoche in Switzerland, which is a weekly magazine. And what he's doing is he publishes opposing views in the same issue, in the same weekly magazine. And sometimes even printing an article, like on, I think, page 1. He's the editor-in-chief, he writes the first article, and then a few pages later, he lets someone else to write or another person to write who is criticizing him for the first article. So what he's doing is he's letting, on the one hand side, conservative to write in his weekly magazine, but then on the other side also progressive, so people on the left. And I think that's very cool because then you get a good overview of different opinions. So you challenge each other. And I think that's what real diversity looks like. Not everyone thinking the same, but people openly challenging each other. And I'm saying that because right now I observe that a lot of people claim to be super pushing diversity, but when it comes to someone else having a different opinion than them, they pretty fast are not anymore sticking to that principle of diversity or diversity in general. They don't like someone else challenging their opinion. But I think that's what real diversity is. If you have two opposing views, two different opinions, and they can disagree with each other, but still having a good conversation, trying to seek or trying to learn something from the other person. So the point here is seek first to understand, but don't be afraid to disagree. That's how real progress happens. You want to challenge each other. And in German we say Streitkultur. And I think bringing back more a positive Streitkultur, which simply means a healthy culture where good debates are allowed, that's an important thing. And it's totally okay if you have different opinions. And sometimes it's totally okay, and it should be okay if you have something to say. Say it. Say what you think to be true. And that's just your opinion, obviously. But the point what I'm wanted to make here is sometimes silence can be a lie. What do I mean with that? If you're having a conversation and you're scared to say something, what you truly think to be true, and you don't say it to not offend the other person, but you actually think you should say it, but you don't say it, that's coming close to an actual lie. Silence is similar to a lie sometimes. So saying what you think is scary, but the alternative of not saying what you think is way worse. So, long story short, lesson number 1, it's okay to have different opinions, and we can always learn something from each other. Lesson number 2 is the fastest path to authenticity. Now, what is authenticity? A lot of people talk about that. Be more authentic, blah, blah, blah. Nobody has ever defined it, and that annoys me sometimes. And I very much like the definition of Alex Hormozi. He defines it from a behavioral standpoint, saying that authenticity is the behavior you have when you have zero threat of punishment. I will repeat that. The behavior you execute, you do, or how you behave when you have zero threat of punishment. In other words, when you are around good friends, that's exactly when you have almost zero threat of punishment, perhaps. You can be your authentic self, your true self, how you really are. And to be more precise, it's when what you think in your head, what you say, and what you actually do are aligned. Those 3 things. And oftentimes they are maybe not aligned at all, but knowing that those 3 things should be aligned to be authentic really very much helped me to become more authentic. And for me, the fastest way to overcome people pleasing was simply saying what I actually believed. We previously talked about that. And it's scary because you don't know how people will react. You don't know the predetermined outcome you normally have in mind you will attain if you say something, what you actually planned. But if you say something that you truly mean, you don't know the outcome. Maybe people disagree with you. They are getting upset. But every time I've spoken my mind instead of pleasing the crowd, I felt lighter, more confident, and more me, so to speak. And authenticity isn't about faking confidence, it's about saying what you believe, even if it offends. And that's the shortest path to freedom, I believe. And in the past months, I had few pretty intense discussions or debates, conversations, how you want to put it. And I was pretty blunt, or I tried to say what I truly think, and it was super scary from time to time. And then actually this week I had a interesting conversation with a friend and with a coworker, and he said, one thing I like about you, or I appreciate, is that I feel you say what you think. And that's what I always wanted to attain, because I very much appreciate people who I think they speak the truth. One example is Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is a renowned public intellectual. And when I listened to him, I always felt, I think he's telling his truth, what he thinks to be true, what he truly thinks. Or another example is Alex Hormozi. I highly recommend, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, listen to his content. The same applies to him. I think when listening to him, that's someone speaking what he truly thinks to be true. The same applies to Modern Wisdom podcast host Chris Williamson, or some other famous, like Joe Rogan is another example. I think, and that is part of perhaps the key to success for some of these people, apart from being consistent and everything, but just asking questions you generally want to ask, saying things you actually think to be true. And I'm not saying you have the truth, that's not what I'm saying, what you just think to be true. So that's lesson number 2. The fastest path to authenticity is by telling what you think to be true. Lesson number 3. Write down a life vision. So for many years now, 6-7 years, I did plenty of different things. I did my bachelor degree, master's degree. I'm still doing now my master thesis. I did internships. I started multiple businesses. I'm now working in a B2B software company in sales as a sales development representative, call calling. I did many different things. And for many years I didn't really know where to go. What's my purpose? What's my life vision? Where I want to go? And you always hear people like, you learn from people, you talk to people, to mentors, and that gives you a lot of different inputs. But what I realized is that the most effective way how to reduce uncertainty, anxiety, is to actually sit for maybe 10 or 20 hours over a course of a month and create some kind of life vision. Now that sounds vague. I recommend, or I personally went through Jordan Peterson's self-authoring suite, which is a pretty intense writing program, and it forced me to sit for hours, reflect, and actually write down what I wanted in life. And that single exercise reduced so much anxiety because suddenly I had a map. And most people spend more time planning a vacation than planning their life, but you are your own best coach. That's a huge learning. I realized in many cases we don't need more information, we don't need more inputs from other people. We can, if we sit and reflect just ourselves in a dark room with just a little light, we can find a solution if we just write, focus for an hour or more for maybe a month or two. Or it gives us clarity because then we know where to go. So the point here is write down where you want to go. You don't need all the answers, but having a vision gives you a compass. And this writing program guides you through this process. It's pretty structured, gives you step by steps how to create a life vision with goals and sub-goals, potential obstacles, how you're planning to overcome them. And I think they even made studies with students who went through that program, and they academically performed better than other students who didn't have a proper life vision. And the main point is just, you can absorb so many information right now. We have books, podcasts, everything good. But the reason why good coaches, life coaches and performance coaches, they usually don't give you that much information, that much input. The very good coaches out there, they ask more questions and give less consulting or advice. Or they do less consulting and giving advice. They ask better questions and let the client or the person in question find the solution by their own. They just guide them. And in the end, it looks like they found the solution by themselves, the client, which is actually the truth. The coach was just there to ask the right questions. But the point I'm making is the best coach is yourself. You can find a solution. So sit, think where you want to go. And I'm just saying that because I always thought, things somehow will fall into place. But they won't. You need to sit and think about where you want to go to create an actual plan. And I say it's hard. It's very hard because you start saying no to so many different things and you need to sit, focus, reflect. It's pretty cognitively demanding. I did it over a course of 1 or 2 months last year in 2024. Sat there in 7 in the morning till 8 or 9, writing on my computer to figure out where I want to go in life. And now I have a pretty clear plan out of me and in front of me, and I feel very good about that. Lesson number 4. Assume you're the dumbest person in the room. I think Alex Ramosi said this, but one person who very much lives this is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, obviously biggest podcast on this planet. And what he's doing is he doesn't posture as the smartest guy in the room. He often asks the stupid questions that everybody has in mind. And that's why he's learned from thousands of experts. He had so many thousands or a lot of conversations, and he learned always something because he's asking genuine questions, things that are truly interesting to him. And by the way, he's also from my perspective, pretty authentic person again, because I think he's saying things that he thinks those things he's saying. And I had to learn this the hard way. In university, especially sometimes my masters, when I had still lectures, because right now I'm just writing the master thesis, I thought constantly about contributing was the path to respect, raising my hand, showing off I've done the readings, but that only made me look like I was trying too hard. And obviously, you want to contribute. It's cool to have a good conversation in a classroom. That's all fine. But I let myself to fall into that tendency to just impress other people, like how much I know. But that's actually stupid. I realized I have way more respect by asking the questions that, if I'm, let's say, alert and awake in a class, and then a question pops into my mind, and I ask that question, although it's scary, that's the better path to go because I can learn something. And often the dumb questions you're afraid to ask is the same question that 70% of the room has in their head, in a classroom setting or sometimes in a meeting. And you're just the one who's brave enough to say it. And that's how real learning happens. And it's interesting. I'm not saying you shouldn't pay attention and then ask a stupid question. But if you pay attention to the lecture or to what someone else is saying, and then you ask a stupid question, this stupid question is genuine. You try to pay down your ignorance that you try to learn something. So listen more, talk less, and if you want to look smart, don't. Focus on becoming smart by listening. And this rule of thumb of first seek to understand before you want to be understood, which can also be translated in just ask questions and try to understand the other party, or in general a topic, is so valuable. But the hard thing is, it looks then that like sometimes you're the fool. You don't know shit, you don't know anything. You need to figure out things, but that's okay. And I very much admire people who are going through life like this. They ask if they don't know something, they say, I just don't know. I want to learn that. So, assume you're the dumbest person in the room. And don't impress other people. Or don't just only optimize for this. Lesson number 5, respect starts with yourself. So I think it's Jordan Peterson who said, before you criticize the world, clean up your room. When I was 17 or 18, I was already working out. That's a good thing. I was working in some jobs, like in service, catering stuff, but I wasn't living the way I wanted. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. I was going out, I was drinking alcohol, I was smoking cigarettes, and my life wasn't aligned with the man I wanted to become. And when I started living differently, eating clean, having a stable relationship, working hard, building this podcast, doing internships, and launching my first business, my reputation followed because people respected me more, but only after I started respecting myself. So reputation isn't marketing, it's a lagging indicator of who you really are. Before you can earn the respect of others, you need to earn the respect of yourself. And that starts by cleaning up your room, starting small with small steps. And if you more and more focus on the things that are under your control, this thing will expand. And the room of impact you have on your life increases gradually or progressively. So, respect starts with yourself. Lesson number 6. Business is just solving problems. Oh, that's one I needed a long time to learn. So, Sam Ovens, the founder of School.com, one of the largest community platforms right now on the planet. I presume it will be the next Facebook for communities. They have a huge, crazy user growth month over month. He nailed it. He said, business or something similar, business isn't about ideas, it's about problems. You can forget shower epiphanies, forget university frameworks. Business is you find a painful problem many people share, you solve it better than anyone else, and get paid for the value you created. And that's why Google exists, for instance. That's why the iPhone exists. They solve massive problems. Google solved the information problem. the iPhone solved, for instance, the smartphone problem. To not go too deep into the specifics, but when you start with a problem, you don't need to convince people. They already feel the pain. And I realized that myself when I started my first business, it was more all about ideas. Oh, we could do this more holistic, and we could be the marketing agencies for those folks, but not really talking about what actual problem they have, or not that often. But when I started to flip it, when I started a coaching business helping high performers with ADHD to become more productive, the problem they had was either mainly procrastination and distractibility and low productivity. But the main problem I wanted to solve is your procrastination issue. I had a clear problem that a lot of people shared and that I could solve with my coaching program, with accountability, with coaching calls, with a community, with one-on-one calls and videos, etc. And now when I started then another company project, we started immediately, what's the problem we want to solve? And now the process from, we have something in mind we want to do, to actually building something is way faster, because we just need to nail the problem first, and the rest is then way easier. And also right now, give you another example. I'm working in a B2B software company, and to get our clients, or top of the funnel, we do cold outreaches, we do cold calls. What is a cold call? You find someone on the internet, you find their phone number, you pick up, you take your phone, call them. Now, how do we do that to get them in a meeting? Because that's the goal of this cold call. We want to book them into a first, let's put it, sales call, simply said. It's more a discovery call, asking questions and showing our product. How we do it is, we have a cool opener, but then the first thing we very much nail is the problem statement. So instead of pitching what we do and how cool we are, we first say, hey, we observed that a lot of folks like you or companies like you have this problem specifically because of this reason. And interestingly, when you first nail the problem properly, the prospect, the potential customer, feels like, oh, this person really understands my issues, my problems I currently experience, or the company I'm working in, the problem we are experiencing there. And then on the flip side, if you're transitioning into the actual solution pitch, you just need to say, we make your problem go away, basically. It's very simple. Problem over solution. That's what I'm saying here. And less thinking in solutions and ideas, more thinking in problems. Or what is this customer, this client's problem right now? How can we solve that? One of the most powerful things I learned. It's so simple and so obvious, but just a simple flip in mindset. Lesson number 7, champions sacrifice more. So everybody wants an extraordinary life. Only few are willing to pay the price. When you commit to something, you're not just saying yes to it, you're saying no to everything else. It's like marriage, yes to one partner, no to everyone else. And most people don't want to give up partying, Netflix, video games, or comfort, but champions do, and that's what separates them. So the question to ask here ourselves is, what are you willing to give up? Because if you don't sacrifice for your goal becomes a sacrifice. It's quite an obvious one, but I learned that setting goals or having lofty goals, super important. But as important is, what are you willing to say no to in order to attain that goal? So let's say my goal is to lose body fat. That's right now what I'm working on. I'm getting down to around 80 kilograms from 88. I was always in good shape, but now I want to really shred down. I'm feeling great right now. I'm already at 82-ish kilograms. And the thing is then, what I'm willing to give up. In my case, it was, I loved eating in the evening after my workout, a nice, tasty, healthy, high-protein meal, together with watching a podcast. But the downside of this behavior was, it was right before my sleep, so it interfered with my sleep quality. And sometimes I wouldn't go on time to sleep. And sometimes I ate too much. So I sacrificed that, and now I'm eating earlier, at least throughout the week, most of the days. And another thing I gave up was lots of processed foods, or more like those protein bars, stuff like that. I still do cheat days, obviously, where I go crazy with bad food sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. But 95-ish% is precisely on point without any excuses. So I made clear what I need to give up. Obviously, I need to restrict my calories. I'm cutting out processed foods like protein bars, and I'm not even eating late in the evening. And then it was pretty clear. It's easier to work on that goal. Just so the main point is not only saying what is the outcome, what should be the goal, but also what we are willing to give up in order to attain that goal. And then we can break that very practically into inputs and outputs. Give you another example. Right now, I'm cold calling. I'm a sales development representative, cold calling every day. And my monthly target of booked demos, so booked meetings, is 15. Now, let's reverse engineer how I attain those 15 meetings, because over the past 3 months during my probation time, every single month I booked more meetings than those 15. And how did I do that? I thought, okay, what are the inputs I need to do on a daily basis to achieve that? Okay, I knew roughly that per week I need for sure to make at least 100 dials. So 100 people I'm going to call, because only a small percentage, let's say 30%, depends a little bit on the market, will pick up the phone. And then of those 30%, you will close perhaps every third person if you're a good closer. And then I knew exactly what I needed to do. And also in terms of my daily structure, I knew, okay, I need to wake up, I need to find potential accounts, so companies I want to call, and then find the people within that company that are our target personas, like say head of sales or head of marketing. And then I have a block in my calendar where I do cold calls. And it's uncomfortable, maybe when starting out, but you have a clear plan in front of you. You know exactly what your inputs need to be in order to achieve those 15 meetings per month. So to sum it up, okay, I know how many dials per week, 100. I know how many hours to call per day, on average 2 hours, can be even more, that I attain it for sure. And how many hours I need to find accounts per day. Now I have operationalized that pretty clearly. I know what I need to do on a daily basis. I know how much inputs I need to do on a weekly basis, and then it comes pretty obvious or easier to attain that goal, because you have a clear list of things you need to do. And that's just a rough overview. I also created like a Google Doc where I literally wrote down every single step I need to do on a daily basis, my daily structures, the steps I need to do to research the account, then to call the account, what's happening after I booked someone into a meeting, and now the inputs are pretty clear. So, long story short, champion sacrifice more, make sure the inputs are clear, that you achieve the desired outcome, and ask yourself, what am I willing to give up? Lesson number 8. Ignore the opinions of sheep. So Hormozi said it best. 2 weeks after you die, most people forget you. 6 months later, nobody talks about you. I'll give you an example. Queen Elizabeth from England, one of the largest, so world famous, huge empire, and she died, I don't know, pretty recently, last year, 2 years ago, I don't know, but I'm sure you haven't thought of her today, or in very rare cases. And if that's the case, if after a few weeks or months nobody's thinking of us anymore, although we had such a great legacy, why let their opinions hold you back now? And for me, the key shift was realizing, don't just listen to people closest to you. That's very important. Yeah, because they have in most cases, great intentions. Also listen to the people closest to your goal. That's the big difference. Because sometimes people give all the time advice, but you need to be selective which advice is valuable and which you better put into trash. Because people who are closest to your goals have already maybe the experience, or they have the experience that led them to that point. And learning from those folks I found very helpful, because sometimes I see people who are doing something or going in a total different life direction, which is totally fine, I respect that, and then trying to give advice, but they are actually not doing this. They don't know about what they are talking here, as opposed to someone who's actually doing something on a daily basis. So I'll give you an example. If the goal is to become very good in B2B software sales, you could listen to a friend who's never worked in that industry and saying you need to do that, and maybe that's helpful. But if you listen to someone who's already an expert in B2B software sales and closed a lot of deals, this person has very, very practical experience. And I just found people who have practical experience and know the nuances about an industry and what they are doing. You can learn sometimes better things from them than someone who never has done something and just talks about it in theory. And the reason for that is the nuances. And you can also observe that, witnessing that when you listen to their words. I realized someone who is learned the craft, who's very good in something, is using very specific terminology, as opposed to someone who's only generically knowledgeable when it comes to that topic. I observed that, for instance, when it comes to strategy consultants. There are a lot of smart strategy consultants, no offense here, but if I compare a strategy consultant to someone who's very skilled in a very niche thing, I feel like those are two different worlds, and both have their values, obviously. They're optimizing for different things, but I just always thought it's way more pleasurable to listen to someone who's obsessed with one thing. They know everything about it, and they are not just using those filler words and empty bullshitting words. And I'm not saying every strategy consultant is using bullshitting words. That's not what I'm saying, but I just heard, that's just my observation with whom I sympathized a little bit more, or found, or the advice I found more valuable from the people who are very specific in something, or very good in something. That's lesson number 8. So sometimes the right move is doing the opposite of what everyone else around you is doing. Sheep follow sheep, lions hunt alone, or at least for a certain period of time. That's actually the main point I wanted to make here. Be careful to what opinions you're listening to, and a good indicator that you're doing something right is sometimes doing the exact opposite what everybody else is doing. Like if you're working out, you're eating good food, you're not drinking alcohol, you're hitting the gym, you're working on your business, or you're building up your career. A lot of people are not doing that. Just by doing the basics like working out and eating clean, you're already the exceptions, and sometimes that can be a good indicator that you're doing something right. That's just my humble observation. Lesson number 9. Goodwill compounds faster than money. Goodwill, so trust, reputation, generosity, compounds way faster than money. You can 10x goodwill in weeks, and try doing that with money. It's impossible. No, that's just, I'm exaggerating here. But the point is, I think that's why building an audience or a reputation matters. You grow influence tax-free, and later when you want to monetize, you can. Focus on goodwill now, money later. Why I'm saying that? When I built my coaching business, I helping people with, or high performance with ADHD to become more productive, overcome procrastination. I started that time another podcast. I still have those episodes up. I transferred them to this podcast, by the way. You can look them up. They're all online. And interestingly, I provided, or at least that was my attempt, to provide as much free value as possible. And interestingly, the German podcast I started, called ADHS Power back then, very fast ranked in the German podcast charts, mental health category on, what was it, rank 55, 50 something, whatever. So pretty high and pretty fast, and almost 2K listeners per month. I was like shocked. Or at least a lot of listeners. And I thought, okay, why is that? First, I focus on a niche and I solved the problem again. But I also provided a lot of free value. And I think that's what you first should focusing on, because later I did a small mistake. I do two mistakes perhaps. The first is I started to advertise my services a little bit more aggressively. Maybe I should have done a little bit less and just provide value, because if you provide value anyway, people will find your link online and book a meeting with you, or at least some of them. And second, I switched to English. Although I love English and I love doing this podcast in English because it's a new challenge, from a business standpoint, sometimes it's very good to be super niche, like focusing just on the German market in that case. But I was curious driven and pretty, novelty sometimes is pretty stimulating for the brain, so I did the entire thing on English. But what I'm saying here is, if you build up goodwill and share a lot of value up front, that can compound super, super fast. And later on, you can monetize that in a business setting, but also in a personal setting. Sometimes I feel if we provide someone with a positive experience, whether it's a conversation or a gift we give or a small gesture, the impact is way bigger than we think to be true. If we give you an example, if I'm in the gym, I'm sometimes approaching people proactively. Hey guy, hey, you look amazing. How did you get in that shape? What are you doing? What are you working out? Or how's your diet looking? And then I wish them, hey, have a good workout, have a good day. And that's a positive experience. And I really believe in if you have those positive experience, it makes the world a little bit a better place, and it starts compounding, because this person is now maybe in a better mood. And when this person is in a better mood, this person will have great conversations with other people as well. And then those people again with other people. So you see again, that's the first, second, third, fourth order consequence of a positive interaction, or that's what can happen as a consequence. And also, if you are in general good to people appreciate. If you constantly give more than you take, people appreciate that. I'm not saying you should let other people use you. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are generously productive, that's what we want. And goodwill compounds faster than money. To make the world better, people will witness that, and your reputation will increase. And again, those are all lessons. I'm talking to myself here. Maybe you can learn something. All right, lesson number 10. Extraordinary comes from ordinary done long enough. So, back in the day, I thought becoming successful is doing many different things. Doing here a project, doing here a project. But I realized that you only have so much energy to deploy on a given day. You have only so much focus throughout your life. And to be more careful on what I focus in my life and what exactly I pursue. Because we can start so many different things, but it impairs with our ability to focus and do something very, very well. Because I realized to do something very, very well, it requires a lot of attention. Right now, me as a cold caller, that requires energy, focus. You need to sit, you need to find accounts, you need to call people, you need to do post tasks, and you also I do some account executive tasks as well, so tasks that go beyond my actual role because I want to learn, and that requires obviously energy. And if you have 10 different projects next to that, it's quite hard. And I'm still figuring this out because I have obviously some projects next to that, like this podcast or my work at Swisspreneur, which is a non-profit organization for entrepreneurship. But I realized the less I do, the more I say no to different things, the more clarity I have and energy, focus, and life is more pleasurable because I know exactly what I should do. And I realized this the first time when I started my coaching business back then. I just, during the summer, I was working like hell. This was in 2022. I was working 12-hour shifts and it was so pleasurable because I knew exactly what I should do. It was all about this mental health topic of ADHD, and we not go into the topic of ADHD. I changed my opinion on some of those some of the related things in terms of ADHD, but that's not the point here. I'm just saying that I had a super clear focus. I knew I need to get clients, I need to post content, book people into sales calls, build the product, deliver the product, and read books about this topic to become the expert. I had a super clear focus, and that showed me that how fast you can at least get a little bit better in doing something. And the same, I think, applies to this podcast. Extraordinary comes from ordinary done long enough. I'm now at this episode 219. And I'm obviously not optimizing for a niche. I use this podcast as a learn and reflecting tool. Quite a, egotistical thing to do. But at the same time, it's not, because I bring you along for the journey and maybe you can learn something on the way. And maybe if I learn, I'm a better human being and I'm a better husband or father to my children. So in the end, it's actually not a egotistical thing to do. But I believe very much if I continue doing this podcast, maybe in few years or with every episode, I become a little bit better. And if I become better and better and better, maybe at one point I have a decent audience and more people will listen to this podcast and pick up, hey, that's actually helpful. Or maybe not. We will figure that out. But I just think if you do something for 10 years, it's almost inevitable that you become better. And the same applies same with books. In the beginning, reading feels scattered, but after dozens of books, you start connecting the dots. That's when the compounding kicks in. If you do something long enough, like reading. When I started to read my first self-help book, I didn't know a lot of things. But then I started to pick up my second book, my third book, my fourth book, and things started to fall into place. I started to make connections between different books. There are some easy connections, like you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and you read Seek First to Understand Before You Want to Be Understood, and then you read Jordan Peterson and he claims that, or he says that you can learn from anybody something, it doesn't matter who it is, and those things are building up on each other and you start more and more to understand the world. So consistency makes the ordinary extraordinary. And obviously it's hard, and our brain are sometimes wired to seek novelty because it's stimulating for the brain. But if we are optimizing for mastery in a given field, sticking to something for a very, very, very long time horizon, I think in most cases that can help. And there are some great examples out there and some contrarian example as well. But one example speaking for that approach is Panda Express founder. Just forgot his name. I think he's from Asia somewhere. And he built up this fast food chain in the US. And he's doing that, or the family is doing that already for decades. And in the past few years, they have never opened so many locations like the years, in comparisons to the years before, which is crazy. Just sticking to one thing, do it very, very well. Maybe at one point we become successful, maybe not. But I believe in that right now, and I'm figuring out if it works out. Lesson number 11. Stay lean and frugal. If you buy things you don't need, one day you will sell things you do need. Let me repeat that. If you buy things you don't need, one day you will sell things you do need. I've seen it happen. People start making money, then they start spending big. Lifestyle creep kicks in, and suddenly they're chained to their business just to keep their lifestyle alive, or their job can also be that the case. The freedom isn't staying lean. Don't focus on looking rich, focus on staying free to play the game. Why is this so important? The more you buy stuff, materialistic things, or add complexity to your life, the more complex your life becomes. I made many times the example of Mike Tyson, who became a successful boxer by training hard, then he got rich, then he started to buy all those expensive things, and his boxing quality decreased. Because he added complexity and invited complexity to his life. And by living a simple life, it gives you so much more clarity and less things you need to worry about. And to tell you a quick story how I practice that. I practice that when it comes to my clothes. I have a pretty minimalistic wardrobe. I wear either those blue shirts, light blue, non-iron shirts, black t-shirts, or dark blue or black polos. And I wear most of the time just dark blue pants and the same shoes every day. And it makes life way easier. It's pretty lean. It's pretty easy to choose what I should wear. Or another thing I did when I was living in Salt Lake City during my internship in the US, or when I used to live in St. Gallen during my master's degree, when I had still lectures and needed to be physically present there, I had a pretty minimalistic apartment. It was super lean. Like, I had a bed, bookshelf, table, some few other things, but not a lot of clutter. And when cleaning the apartment, it's going super, super fast. But at the same time, when I moved, I didn't have that many things to move and less of a burden on my shoulders. So stay lean and frugal. Lesson number 12. Focus is a superpower. So, as I mentioned before, this is one I struggle with sometimes. It's easy to start too many projects, chase shiny objects, say yes to everything. But real growth happens when you focus deeply on one thing and keep improving. And that's how Google became Google, that's how Apple became Apple, and not by chasing everything, but by doing one thing extraordinarily well. Focus isn't just discipline, it's very much power. It's a short one, but I found it very, very helpful on my journey. Lesson number 13. Success is cyclical, not linear. So, the cycle of success normally is like this. Failure, failure, failure. You learn, then you succeed. Then complacency kicks in, and then again failure. That can be the cycle. But when I first heard this from, I think it was Hormozy or Sam Ovens, very much clicked. Most entrepreneurs crash after success, not after failure. Success breeds complacency. And the trick is spotting where you are in the cycle. And if you are failing, it's just a setup for learning. And if you're succeeding, watch your ego and stay sharp. Don't introduce complexities to your life. Don't buy expensive stuff all the time. Not saying not at all, but keep an eye on it and don't fall into that tendency of complacency. Because entrepreneurship or building up a great career isn't a straight climb. It's seasons. Learn to play the seasons. And I experienced that myself. I had some periods on my business journey back then where I was working super, super hard. I made mistakes. Then I started again. I got better. And then you have a decent amount of success. You have so many clients enrolled in your program, in your business. And if you think, oh, it's working, and then complacency starts kicking in a little bit, and then you need to remind yourself, oh, I need to continue to work hard, because otherwise this will not work out. And the last lesson for today is lesson 14. Pay to see reality clearly. This is a very powerful one. So, ignorance is expensive. Quick story. In 2022, I spent almost 8,000 US dollars on a US coaching program, and that felt insane to me at that time. But within weeks, I learned how to acquire customers, deliver results, and build an online business. And I made that money back almost entirely, even more, I think, pretty quickly, or at least over the course of I don't know how many months. And also if that program was a little bit more expensive, I think I would pay the price immediately because it was so good. Why? Because paying for clarity is always worth it. The faster you see reality as it is, the faster you can win. And imagine playing darts blindfolded. You will miss forever, but take the blindfold off and suddenly you're hitting the target. That's what paying for clarity does. Sometimes paying for knowledge, actual knowledge, super helpful. In that case, with the coaching program, they gave me all the things I needed to do on a daily basis to build up a successful coaching business. The scripts, how to write DM messages to potential clients, how to conduct sales calls, how to structure your program, all the things I didn't know. And imagine I would have figured it out all on my own. That would took me so much time. But instead, I bought the shortcut. I had all the things and I just needed to execute. And just this fact, by the way, I'm sometimes questioning university, because university, after buying this coaching program, I realized within a month I learned more about making money than in my entire university career. And a lot of people don't know this. And always in most cases when I talk about this, people don't know it. They just are so rigid when it comes to, no, university is the thing, you need the paper, you need the diploma. And I just think, guys, we are now in 2025, and I think there are so much more efficient ways how to acquire knowledge out there. And I understand, in some industries, in more conservative industries, you still need a diploma, fair enough. And in some cases, in some career path, it's very good thing, obviously, to qualify people and showing that you're qualified. I'm just making the point that in terms of efficiency, how fast you can acquire knowledge, I think university, how the knowledge is taught, is not the most effective or most efficient thing. In that coaching program, we had 3 pillars. We had videos to watch, very actionable. Second, we had a coaching community with peers, with like-minded people, similar to university, where we could exchange knowledge. And they were all motivated because they invested a good bunch of money. And third, we had group coaching call and one-on-one calls, 2 per day, something like that, or even more. And everything was practical. It was not theorizing and thinking about stuff how it could be. It was executing and then reflecting and asking questions. And I realized that at that point that the fastest way to learn something is not by reading books, by reading studies, it's by executing. Because if you execute, you learn the nuances, the little details that only very, very few people know. A lot of people talk about call calling and how you should do call calls, but how many people actually sat there for hours and hours every single day and did actual call calls? Very few people. But those who did it, I admire them, and I love learning from those folks. So all this to say that I'm not disrespecting university. I have huge respect for the university environment. I myself went to university. I learned there also a lot. I'm just making the point, also university need to be alert that maybe there are more efficient paths they can implement in their curriculum, in their way they are teaching knowledge. And right now there is Jordan Peterson with Peterson Academy, who is bringing together the best professors on the world for a fraction of the cost, at least in the US, for a normal degree. I'm just thinking, that's one step in the right direction. More of that, please. And more of those coaching programs. And maybe that's something university can pick up a little bit more. And there are some very good universities. For instance, where I went, University of St. Gallen, they're making an effort to be more practical. They have a lot of connection to the real world, let's put it like that. And I very much like that. That's part of the reason why I went to that university. So that's a good thing. But still, there are many universities out there, or at least that's what I heard and what I experienced myself in my previous university, is a lot of theory and things you can't really apply in real life, And fair enough, people always claim, yeah, it gives you discipline, it helps you to work with a proper structure and organize things. Fair enough, but I would also make the argument, if you jump right into work environment, you can also learn that there, So I hope I could make a good argument here. Again, not saying that one thing is is totally bad and the other thing is good. I'm just saying maybe this is a good incentive for university to keep an open eye on this and maybe implement that into their curriculums and have some accelerator programs that are very, very distilled, very focused for few skills you want to acquire. And there are some examples out there, but a lot of unis, I think, need to do a better job on that front. All right. So that was lesson number 14. Pay to see reality clearly. I went a little bit off rail, but I hope you enjoyed it. Now, let's wrap up this episode. It's a longer one. I share with you 14 life lessons I wish I knew at 18. Number 1 was, it's okay to disagree. Number 2 was authenticity, align thought, word, and action. Lesson number 3, write down a life vision. Lesson number 4, listen more than you speak. 5, respect yourself first. 6, business equals solving problems or solve problems. 7, champions sacrifice more. 8, ignore opinions. 9, goodwill compounds. 10, ordinary times time equals extraordinary. 11, stay frugal. 12, focus is a superpower. 13, success is cyclical. And 14, pay for clarity. So as a thank you for tuning in, I spent 4 months putting together a list of over 100 podcast episodes everyone should hear before they die, all from other shows, not mine. Inside you will find my top 10 all-time favorites, plus the best picks or the best episodes I've ever discovered on wealth, health, relationships, and productivity. Just click the link in the show notes to download it for free. It's completely free. You can enjoy it. And you will get also my newsletter if you sign up, so we can keep learning together. So thank you very much, and I wish you a great week.